بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العظيم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من قال لا إله إلا الله مخلصا دخل الجنة قيل وما إخلاصها قال أن تحجزه عن محارم الله أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Respected brothers, elders, mothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a perfect example by way of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. And that person who looks into the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he will find the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to be a perfect example. The key word is looking into his life. لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُ اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ. That person who hopes on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his maqsad, his purpose, his intention is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the hereafter, then he will find Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to be the perfect example. Today in the world we live in, the society has taught us, the environment has taught us, the education system has taught us that everything against the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a life we need to adopt. Yes, they won't openly say that directly, but if you look at the teachings that are being taught from the schools and from the different environments and societies to the children, right? What is being pushed is a life against the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is a life against fitrah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. It's against a normal life. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created this insan. And after creating this insan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who made the system of the insan. And because He was the creator of insan, He knows what's best for insan and what is better for him to stay away from. And the moment insan and this human being moves away from that, from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants and what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had lived his life by, then that person will become the worst of the worst. He might think in society that he is climbing the ranks, right? He might think that he's fitting in, and the person might think that he's going somewhere in life. But that person will eventually come to realize that the life that he's living is a life against the wills of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which will take him into all of these problems and anxieties and stress. Today you see, people have so much money, right? Especially living in the state that we're in and the city that we're in, surrounded by money. You ask a normal person his salary, he'll tell you numbers that you can't even think about. But that same person, after having all of that, he needs to take medication to go to sleep. He needs to wake up to medication. He needs to go to this therapist. He needs to go to talk to this person, right? Because of all the anxieties and the stress that comes. Now a person comes to realize and he thinks, and every single person who doesn't have money, he feels that when I get money, it's going to be the solution to all of my problems. When I get this job, when I land this job, when I get that salary, when my bank account is filled, then all of my happiness will come and all of my stress will go away. But then a person reaches that, and then he comes to realize that happiness is not in that. And then people are searching in different places and different modes and different lifestyles. And then they come to realize that there's no happiness in any of that. And how can there be any happiness when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the happiness of the heart, the contentment of the heart, that will only come by a person adopting the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and taking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. The hearts will only come to rest and they will only come to happiness when they are connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is made. So if you look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, if we measure it by our standards, right? Our standards are depending on the size of my house, the car that I drive, the bank balance that I have, then I will be considered a successful, happy person. So if we measure that in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, na'udhu billah, a person will come to the understanding that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most unsuccessful person. That the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, majority of them, they were unsuccessful. But then even then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, without having all of that, having none of the dunya, very limited amounts, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ أُولَٰئِكَ حِزْبُ اللَّهِ أَلَا إِنَّ حِزْبَ اللَّهِ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. After having none of the dunya, if you look into the life, you look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his life, being the leader, being the final prophet, being a person who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would just wait for him to say something and he would have been given whatever riches of the world that he wanted. The angels had come down to ask him that. But how was his condition? The Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it comes in narrations that many a times he wouldn't have food in his home. مَا شَبِعَ عَالُ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ يَوْمَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. Today we eat 3 times a day, 2, 3, 4 weeks, 1 month, 6 months. Sometimes it happens where we have some engagements, we miss out on our food. A person starts going nuts. I didn't have food today. Right? Or something didn't go right with the food. The food that we ate today, there was something extra that was accidentally put in. A person loses it. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? It comes in narrations that not only did he not have food at times, but sometimes if he would fill his stomach one day, the next day would come where he would be hungry. And this was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was the best of creation. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that you're the best. And many people came. Right? They tried to do different things to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Because of his life that he had and the mission that he had and the message that he came to the people with, that say La ilaha illallah and believe in me as a prophet. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إِنِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ إِلَيْكُمْ جَمِيعًا الَّذِي لَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that go ahead and announce to the people and tell them that I am the messenger to all of you. I am the final prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I've come with this message. Right? So this is the life that we need to bring within us. Right? Today we idolize different people, right? different celebrities, different people that we think are successful. Even within a community, you'll find a person, even if he's coming to the house of Allah, rather than looking up to a religious person, we try to get close to a person who has wealth. We look at his life. How can I become like him? Right? Whereas our life needs to be looked up. We need to look up to the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and those that are following that. Right? It was asked to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once, and that who should I associate myself with? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what answer did he give the person? He said that person, when you look at him, it reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It reminds you of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It reminds you of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It reminds you of the pure life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that will come in accordance to how much deen a person has. And going back to what we said at the beginning, the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the perfect example. But it will only be considered a perfect example for each and every single one of us if we have that belief within ourselves that is true success. In each and every single sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is true success. Right? Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they understood this. That when they believed in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were ready to give their life for them. One sahabi is lying on a battlefield. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sends another sahabi to go check on the wounded. So Sa'd radiallahu anhu is amongst the wounded and he is going through the last moments of his life. And he is asked by this sahabi who came to do a checkup on him. So he asked him, how are you doing? He said, forget how I'm doing. He said, I'm leaving this world. And he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is alive amongst you. He said, if I come to find out that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is harmed in any way, be it physically or even emotionally he is harmed, and while you are standing here and while you're alive and able to do something, he said, in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will bring you in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I will take you to task in front of him. And how much love they had that even at these moments, when they're leaving the world, their worry and concern is not their family. Their worry and concern is not what's going to happen to the business. But the worry and concern is what's going to happen to Allah, His deen, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's why Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they fell in love with every aspect of it. Today we pick and choose what part of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam I want to follow. So if it's something which is in my benefit, if it's something which is easy for me to do, then I'll do it. And if it's something which is not in my benefit, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Udkhulu fi silmi kafa. And don't pick and choose from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and from the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You recited the kalima of La ilaha illallah, you came into the fold of Islam, enter it completely. There is no picking and choosing. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. The deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said is complete. It's done. ما أحل الله, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made halal, go ahead and consume from that, do that. And whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made impermissible, whatever Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam laid out in his life, go ahead and stay away from those things which are impermissible. And so Sahaba radiallahu anhum, not only did they follow the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they also brought within themselves the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is something which we also need to focus on. That how much of my life is coming closer and closer to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's life? Or am I going further away? Right? Especially these months that we go through Rabi al-Awwal, people have, they come in this, they have this josh that they come into. And they have this little feeling and excitement. And many people will have these big claims that they do. Right? People will say the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sometimes even over-exaggerating on these things. Right? But a lot of times they just remain as words. Because if you look at within our life, or the person making the claim his life, it's the furthest away from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will only come if you are bringing your life in accordance to that. And it was the best of life. Sahaba radiallahu anhu, they said, وَأَجْمَلُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَ قَطُّ عَيْنِي وَأَحْسَنُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَ قَطُّ عَيْنِي وَأَجْمَلُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَلِدِ النِّسَاءُ خُلِقْتَ مُبَرَّأً مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبِ كَأَنَّكَ قَدْ خُلِقْتَ كَمَا تَشَاءُ. Right? That the best was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The most beautiful was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? The best person to come on the face of this earth, ظاهرا وباطنا. Right? Inside and outside. It was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's why one time Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam walked in, I was looking for a needle. It was dark, there was no light. The moment he walked in, because of the radiance of his face, it lit up the room and I was able to find my needle. لنا شمس وللآفاق شمس وشمسي خير من شمس السماء فإن الشمس تطلع بعد فجر وشمسي طالع بعد العشاء. She said, the entire world has a sun that comes and illuminates the day for a set amount of hours. And she said, I also have a sun that illuminates my life. See, the only difference is that the sun that comes out for everybody else is only there for a limited amount of time. Once sunset comes, it goes away. And then darkness comes. But she said, the sun that I have, which is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he illuminates my life and the life of those followers of his 24/7. His illumination never goes away. أغر عليه للنبوة خاتم من الله مشهود يلوه ويشهد وضم الإله اسم النبي إلى اسمه إذا قال في الخمس المؤذن أشهد وشق له من اسمه ليجله فذو العرش محمود وهذا محمد. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? He gave him the seal of prophethood and he gave him the famous ring that he had. And it was a shining light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that I have connected his name with my name. That every single time there is a call to prayer, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. Not only that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, He is so beloved to me that I have taken a part of my name out, Mahmud, and I have made it Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who was Ahmad. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also had many different names. So this is the Prophet of Allah who we have been given. Anbiya alayhimus salatu was salam, they came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only wanting to be the Prophet of these people, but if they couldn't, they wanted to be in the nation of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? Because they knew all the virtues that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had come with and what was kept with his followers. Right? Now we need to be true followers of this. Right? So every single year when we are reminded of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and when he came into this world, right? It should be a point of reflection for us that how much am I coming closer to his life? How much am I bringing in what life that he had? Now, I'm not saying go to the sacrifices that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had gone through, but whatever we can, the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ba'd al-fara'id, right? After following the fara'id that we have, the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam should come into our life, into our homes, into our families, to our children, into our decisions that we're making, into our businesses. And when a person does that, initially that person might find that Allah is testing him. And he might look at it and he say, you know what, maybe there is not much apparent benefit to it. Right? But in the long run, a person will find how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless that person. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala each and every single day makes it a point for us to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and closer to the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa akhiru da'wana.